Society has one rule above all others, not the laws written in courtrooms, not the codes printed in textbooks. The real rule, the one enforced everywhere, by everyone, every single day. Do not say what is actually true. Say what is comfortable. Say what is safe. Say what preserves the peace of the room and the approval of the people in it. Say anything at all except the thing you actually see. One man broke that rule, completely, publicly, without apology, and they called him the most dangerous person alive. Not because he was violent, because he was honest. Today we are going to talk about exactly what he said, and exactly why it terrified everyone who heard it. Stay. Because this conversation is the one society has been working hardest to prevent. There is a specific kind of fear that societies share across cultures, across centuries, across every system of organization human beings have ever constructed. It is not the fear of crime, not the fear of war, not the fear of poverty or disease or natural disaster. It is the fear of the person who looks at the existing order, at all of its elaborate structures and careful justifications and well-maintained fictions, and says simply and clearly, "This is not what you say it is." That person is always the most dangerous figure in any room they enter. Not because they carry weapons, not because they organize armies, because they carry something far more destabilizing. An accurate description of reality, Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, is that person. And the response of every institution, every authority, and every established power in that film to his presence tells you everything you need to know about why the truth he speaks is the one society fears most. Because it is not a fictional truth. It is not a comic book truth. It is a description of how things actually work, stripped of every layer of comfortable narrative that civilization has spent generations constructing to make that description bearable. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to go through it directly. What he actually said, what it actually means, and what it costs both to say it and to continue pretending it was never said. Let us begin. Before we talk about what the Joker said, we need to talk about what society fears most. And it is not what most people assume. Society does not fear violence. Not fundamentally. Violence is something that can be managed, contained, responded with proportionate force and institutional machinery that has been refined over centuries precisely for that purpose. What society fears at a structural level, in the way that systems fear things, is transparency. The possibility that the people operating within the system will look at it clearly enough to see what it actually is, rather than what it presents itself as being. Think about this carefully. Every major institution you have ever been part of, every organization, every system, every structure of authority operates through a combination of two things: actual function and narrative. The actual function is what it does. The narrative is the story it tells about what it does and, crucially, why. Those two things are almost never identical. The corporation that tells you it exists to serve its customers and primarily exists to extract maximum value for its shareholders. The government that tells you it exists to protect the public good and primarily exists to perpetuate the conditions that keep the people currently in power. In power. The social group that tells you it is built on loyalty and genuine connection and primarily exists as a network of mutual self-interest that holds together exactly as long as every member continues to provide more than they require. None of this is a conspiracy. None of it requires malice to produce. It is simply what happens when human beings, with all of their genuine self-interest, their motivated reasoning, their capacity to believe whatever serves them most conveniently, organize themselves into systems. The systems are not evil. They are honest about themselves. To themselves almost never. And the person who says so clearly, and without apology, triggers a response that is entirely disproportionate to the content of what they said. Because it is not the content that is being responded to. It is the threat. The threat of what happens to a system when enough of the people inside it stop accepting the narrative and start seeing the function. The Joker is that threat embodied. Walking through Gotham, pointing at every narrative, in every room, and demonstrating with surgical precision the gap between what is claimed and what is real. And every institution in the film responds to him not as a criminal, as an existential problem. There is a concept so foundational to modern society that it is almost never examined directly: the social contract. The basic premise: individuals surrender certain freedoms, accept certain constraints, and subordinate certain personal interests in exchange for the protections, opportunities, and collective benefits that only organized society can provide. It is taught as the foundation of civilization, the rational basis for everything from taxation to traffic laws to the basic expectation that strangers will not harm you on the street. The Joker's central philosophical provocation, the one that runs beneath every scene he is in, is a single devastating question about this contract. What if it was never actually agreed to? Not by you, personally, not by the people on whom it is most heavily enforced. He tells Batman directly, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke, dropped at the first sign of trouble. And then this is the line that matters. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. He is not predicting barbarism. He is making a specific, testable claim about the conditions under which the social contract actually holds. And the claim is this: the contract holds when it is convenient, when the cost of maintaining it is lower than the cost of abandoning it, when the people with the most to lose from its collapse are the ones with sufficient power to enforce it. The moment those conditions change, the moment maintaining the contract becomes genuinely costly for the people with the power to abandon it, the contract is abandoned. And the people who were most dependent on it, who had the fewest alternatives, who had given the most in exchange for its promised protections, are left without recourse. You have seen this, not necessarily in dramatic, cinematic terms, in ordinary life. The company that asks for your loyalty, your extra hours, your sacrifice of personal priorities, and restructures the moment the numbers make it convenient. Without the reciprocal loyalty it implicitly promised. The relationship that asked you to make yourself smaller, more accommodating, more available, and withdrew the moment the cost of staying became inconvenient for the other person. The institution that benefited from your compliance and offered nothing comparable in return when you needed it to. That is not an accident. That is not a failure of specific individuals to live up to a good system. That is the system working as it was designed to work for the benefit of those with sufficient power to define its terms and sufficient leverage to avoid being bound by them. The Joker did not create this reality. He simply refused to pretend it was something other than what it is. And society, which had invested enormously in everyone pretending otherwise, responded accordingly. I want you to stop thinking about institutions for a moment. Governments, corporations, systems. I want you to think about yourself. Specifically, I want you to think about the last time you said something you did not fully believe, to preserve a peace that was costing you more than it was worth. The last time you agreed with something you disagreed with, because the disagreement would have been inconvenient. The last time you presented a version of yourself that was carefully managed rather than genuinely real, because the genuine version felt like too large a risk to offer. How long ago was that? Not years. Not months, days. Probably, the Joker speaks the truth society fears most. But the reason it is feared is not solely because it threatens institutions. It is because it threatens the smaller, more intimate version of the same fiction that each of us maintains. Every person in this film, like every person in actual life, is performing competence they do not always feel, performing certainty about things they genuinely doubt, performing contentment with arrangements that are quietly suffocating them, performing acceptance of treatment they have privately decided is unacceptable. And the performance is so constant, so automatic, so deeply embedded in how we have learned to move through the world, that most people have lost the ability to clearly distinguish between what they actually think and what they have decided it is safe to appear to think. The Joker has no such confusion. He knows exactly what he thinks. He knows exactly what he sees. And the terrifying precision of his perception, the thing that makes him the most psychologically threatening character in the film, is that he can identify the performance in other people with an accuracy that suggests he has studied it from the outside for a very long time. He tells Batman, "You didn't think I'd risk losing the battle for Gotham's soul in a fistfight with you." He is not talking about strategy. He is talking about the fact that Batman is performing the role of the hero, who wins through strength, while the Joker has moved to a level of engagement where the performance itself is the target. He does not fight the person. He dismantles the story the person is telling about themselves. And that is the most intimate, most uncomfortable truth in the film. Because the story you are telling about yourself, the one you perform for the world, is not entirely true, and you know it. The question is not whether the performance exists. It does. In every human being navigating social reality, it exists. The question is how aware you are of it, and how much of your life is being governed by maintenance of the performance, rather than by what you actually think, want, and know to be real. At this point, the natural response to everything we have discussed is a reasonable one. Fine, the system is tilted. The social contract is selective. The performance is real and pervasive and costly. But what is the alternative? Because honesty has costs. Genuine, serious, sometimes irreversible costs. The relationship that ends when you say what you actually think. The professional consequence when you refuse to perform the required deference. The social exclusion when you stop pretending to agree with things you do not agree with. These are real. I am not going to minimize them. But here is the question the Joker forces, and it is the one that the people most invested in your continued compliance would most prefer you never ask. What is the cost of not being honest? Not in a single instance, across a life. The energy required to maintain a performance indefinitely. The slow erosion of your ability to distinguish between what you actually believe and what you have decided is safe to believe. The relationships built on the managed version of you rather than the real one, relationships that can never offer genuine connection. Because genuine connection requires genuine presence. And you have learned to be present only in the managed form. The accumulating weight of things unsaid, positions undefended, boundaries unmaintained because maintaining them would have disrupted the performance. The Joker paid an enormous price to speak clearly. But the price he paid before that was the price of being a person who absorbed everything, expressing nothing, and maintained every required performance, while the world around him treated that maintenance as the minimum expected, rather than the extraordinary sacrifice it was. That price was greater. He tells Harvey Dent in the hospital scene, the most philosophically dense conversation in the film. Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. The plan, the accepted order of things, is the ongoing arrangement by which certain costs are absorbed silently by the people least able to refuse them, so that the people most able to distribute those costs more equitably do not have to. You have been absorbing costs, in silence, in compliance, in the performance of contentment with arrangements you did not design and never fully agreed to. The Joker's contribution is not to tell you what to do about it. It is simply to make the absorption visible, to name it clearly, in a context where everyone can hear, and in doing so to give you the option of deciding, for the first time with full information, whether you want to continue. What does a life look like practically, concretely, when it is no longer organized around the maintenance of a performance? Not a life of chaos, not a life of burning everything down and declaring yourself beyond the requirements of human society. That is the theatrical version, the cinematic shorthand. The real version is quieter, and considerably more difficult. It looks like having a clear, specific answer to the question, what do I actually think about this? And being willing to act from that answer rather than from the question, what is the safest thing for me to appear to think? It looks like evaluating relationships not by their social utility, not by what maintaining them costs, versus what abandoning them would cost, in terms of reputation, network, or approval, but by whether they are built on something real. Whether the version of you that shows up in that relationship is a genuine version, or a managed one. Whether the other person is actually present or performing. Whether the connection survives contact with honesty. It looks like making professional and personal decisions from your actual values, rather than from the continuous background calculation of what each decision does to how you are perceived by the people whose perception you have been taught to treat as load-bearing. None of this is simple. None of it comes without cost. But the costs are real, costs paid for real choices, made with real information, in service of a life that is actually yours, versus the costs of the performance, which are also real, and also paid continuously, but in service of a life that belongs in its most important dimensions to whoever is doing the expecting. The Joker tells Batman, "You complete me." Beneath the theater he is saying, the resistance of the world, the pushback, the refusal of things to conform to what you need them to be, that is not the obstacle. That is the substance, the friction that defines the shape of what you actually are. The betrayals that cost you, the rejections that clarified who was never genuinely invested, the failures that revealed the limits of what you had been trying to build, and forced a more honest assessment of what was worth building instead. All of it is information. All of it is the raw material of a life that is being lived in contact with reality, rather than in management of a fiction about it. That is the life available on the other side of the Joker's truth. Not comfort, not easy, not the warm, frictionless existence that the performance promises and never quite delivers. Clarity, grounded, costly, irreplaceable clarity. I want to say something now that has nothing to do with film analysis. The reason the Joker speaks the truth society fears most is not because the truth is complicated. It is not hidden behind academic language or philosophical jargon, or the kind of reasoning that requires years of study to access. It is feared because it is simple. Because it is the kind of truth that, once heard clearly, cannot be unheard. And the version of yourself that existed before hearing it, the one organized entirely around the performance, around the management of perception, around the absorption of costs that were never fairly distributed, that version cannot quite survive the hearing. That is what makes it dangerous. Not to you. To the systems that depended on that version of you remaining in place. The truth society fears most is not that the system is broken. Broken things can be fixed. Broken things can be reformed, improved, optimized, made more efficient. The truth society fears most is that the system is working exactly as designed, for the benefit of whoever designed it, and that the performance it requires from the people inside it, your compliance, your silence, your absorption of costs, your maintenance of fictions that primarily serve the interests of those with the least to lose from their maintenance, is not a malfunction. It is the product. The Joker understood this, not as a theory, as lived experience, as something he had felt in his own body, his own history, the specific shape of his own particular destruction. And when he decided to stop absorbing it silently, the only tools available to him were the ones the system had left him, which is its own kind of indictment. You have more tools than he did. You have this conversation, this moment of seeing clearly, before the situation has become irreversible, before the only available responses are the desperate ones. You have the ability to take the same recognition, the same clear, unsparing view of how things actually work, and respond to it not with destruction, but with the far more difficult and far more powerful act of simply refusing to perform. Refusing to absorb costs that are not yours to carry. Refusing to maintain fictions that primarily serve people who have no corresponding obligation to you. Refusing to treat the approval of systems that were never designed with your genuine well-being in mind as a meaningful measure of your worth. That refusal to be quiet, specific, sustained, is what actually threatens the systems the Joker was pointing at. Not the chaos, not the fire, the clarity. The Joker spoke the truth society fears most. The question that has always mattered, the one this entire video has been building toward, is whether you are ready to hear it. Not as entertainment, not as film analysis, as something directed at you. Specifically right now, because you have been hearing it for a while. You just needed someone to finally say it out loud. Society fears the Joker's truth for one reason above all others. Because once enough people hear it clearly, once the gap between what the system claims to be and what it actually is becomes visible to enough people simultaneously, the performance becomes impossible to sustain, and the entire architecture that depends on that performance. Every system, every institution, every relationship built on managed fiction, rather than genuine reality, has to either transform or collapse. That is the fear. And it is, when you examine it directly, a completely rational one. If something in this video landed, if something here named what you have been carrying without quite finding the language to drop a comment, Tell me which moment. Tell me where you are with it. I read everything. If this deserves to be heard, share it. Subscribe with notifications. This channel exists for exactly this. Conversations too honest for comfortable platforms, too necessary to avoid. Society's greatest fear is not the man in the face paint. It is the moment you stop needing the performance. Because after that moment they have nothing left to threaten you with. Society's greatest fear is not the man in the face paint. It is the moment you stop needing the performance. Because after that, they have nothing left to threaten you with. The truth society fears most is not that the system is broken. It is that the system is working exactly as designed, for the benefit of whoever designed it. The Joker did not create the reality he exposed. He simply refused to pretend it was something other than what it is. That refusal to be quiet, specific, sustained is what actually threatens the system.